Hi, it's Jackie Rankin, and today I'm going to do a drop shadow on a square image, and I'm going to go quite slow, and I'm using Zoom to just record the screen. So there you go. I'm going to share my screen now. Photoshop, I think. Now if I go Option Command C, I am in Photoshop. I get an idea of how big my image is by this here. It says width 68. So I'm probably going to add about a 5 centimeter border on that. So depending on how big your files are, will depend on how big you want your border. So then there can't be a really one size fit all in this case. Now the other thing I wanted to talk about is that when I'm looking at a photograph like this, if I had my background as dark, really dark or black, they'll look quite different. But if I had it as my customs setting, which is there, and I found my custom setting by clicking on the bottom and then go right into that corner. There's my white. I can't see my edge of the border very much, particularly once I've clicked out of that crop tool. So I find it's better to use, classically I just use that gray. Anyway, the next thing to do is Command J for copy and paste. So now I need to add some, now I need to put on some, well, I can do it either. I can either put the drop shadow on now by adding some more border, but I think what I'll do is I'll put some type on it. So going to the type tool on the left-hand side, as soon as I click on any of these tools on the left, the top row changes to show you how that tool is set up. So in here, you have a whole lot of different kinds of, samples of different texts. Arial, black, just try Arial, regular, bold, different things in here. Let's try an italic of that. And let's see how, I don't know how big it's going to be until I click it on the page. But over time, you get to work out how big to make it for different size images that you might have. So that's come up, and I can move that round by clicking on it. And as soon as I get that little move tool, I can move that round to where it's got to be. And I quite like to have, the idea is to have it in a little border on the side. So here, I'll just click on it, I'll highlight it, and I'll just call this leaf study. Okay. The picture is quite high key, and having it in black doesn't look too good. So I could have changed the text color up here on the top line. It's in black at the moment. I could have changed that to gray, but instead I'll just bring down the opacity on the right-hand side, pulling that down to make it look in balance, in the harmony with the photograph. So then to make another layer or another text column, I can just click back on the type tool and click into there, and to get the @ sign, it's Option G. This is on a PC. And I'll put Jackie Rankin. Oh, capital R. I've got a little. Yeah, that's it. Right, so I got that wrong. There we go. And the other one was down to 50%, so I'll bring this one down to about 50%. Right, so they're all happy as Larry, and now I'll need to actually squash those into that second layer. So I might have done something a little bit wrong here because I've got lots of layers, but I can just click on that layer here and Command E, that'll squash that down one. Click on that top layer again, Command E, that'll squash it down two. So now it's just in that top layer. And I need to add some more space around this now so I can put the drop shadow. Doesn't seem to matter if I'm clicked on the top or the bottom, but all I have to do is do Option Command C for canvas and add that another 5 and another 5 centimeters. There's the ways of bringing it in, but centimeters there. And I've chosen white, not black, gray, or other. And so I go OK. So even though I clicked on, I was on the top layer, the bottom, the background is what's spread out there. So clicking on that top layer is where I need to be. I can do one of two things. I can come down to the bottom on this layers palette. There's an FX box. You've got lots of different things down here, and there's drop shadow. And this brings up this style, layer style. And under that, there's all sorts of things you can do here. Drop shadows and da-di-da-di-da. Click on them all if you like, but it won't look very good. But instead, I've actually set up 3 different kinds of drop shadows, depending on what size image I have or whether it's web. And sometimes I put on 2 at once, because that looks good. But there's one, I'll go to the top one. So clicking back onto that top one, by double clicking, it's opened up this area on the right. And because whenever I see that little move tool, I know that I can move that. I know that's something I can move around. So that's what that little icon means when you see that little square with an arrow. So I can move around the drop shadow. I can also move it from left to right up here on the angle. I can change its opacity to be quite dark. And to get to a point where I quite like it again. It's got to suit the aesthetic of the picture. So not one size doesn't fit all when you're doing these kind of things. Maybe a little bit more distance. And look, just trial and error. Size makes it bigger and smaller and softer and wider until you get something that you like the look of. You can save that, make it default, or reset back to a default. Just give things a go. Right, so I'll go okay. So there's my drop shadow now. I want to, the next step is to flatten that down, which will be Command E again. There are lots of slower ways to do all these actions I've got, and pretty well they're all up here under edit. You'll see anything that's down the side here that's showing you little shortcuts. Right, just so you know. Okay, so that's all ready to go. But if I want to to post this on the internet, then it must be smaller. Perhaps I'll just save this where it is for now. So I'll go File, Save As, and I'll put it on my desktop, and I'll make it into a .tiff file. Got it, perhaps finished. I want to keep it like that. Ready to go. So the next thing I want to do is resize it. So image size. So I could have used the Option Command I for there for resizing, but I don't tend to know that one very well. Under here, the resolution at the moment is 300, which is good for printing work. And if I was to see how big it was, I'm looking at pixels at the moment. I could look at centimeters. It says that the original size of this print is actually 78 centimeters, so it's pretty whopping big, which is better than that big, unless I was making a great big poster. But for the internet, I generally want to see it in pixels. There you go. And I want to see it at 72 pixels. And now let's just come down, and I want to make that 1080 for Instagram and Facebook, but mainly Instagram. And I've allowed this to be on automatic, but you can do this yourself. Because I was making the image smaller, I could have put it on to reduction, but automatic's working for me okay. I'll make that smaller, so it's now much smaller. It's come down to 3.4 megabytes. But there's still one more thing to do, and that is to go File, Export, Save for Web. What this does, it shows you some comparisons of how, I'll put a little black extra border in there, of how a compressed image will look. So that's gone from 3.4 megabytes down to 80.94K. And that's because I've done some compression for the internet. And this shows you before and after. If I did more compression, I could bring that quality down really low, but now I'm starting to see that the image is disintegrating and not looking so good. So you just bring it up to a point where you can't really tell the difference, but it's going to load much quicker, particularly for your own website. So about 50 is working okay. That's must have here, up here, called 2-up. There's another 4-up, but I'm not using that. Just 2-up is what I use all the time. I'm going to go save on that. What that does, it puts little dashes in between any words that you've got up there, and this is an opportunity for you to we can rename this if you like and call it a leaf, put the dashes back in, leaf study 2023. Oh, maybe I'll put my name in there too, Rankin, just for the go of it. And this is going to save it into my Dropbox folder with all my other web things intertwined, and I'm happy for it to go there. Save. So there you go. I hope that's made sense. Just another one. Look at those. I find it's very interesting. I've got that little black shadow in there. I have to go back. If I ever wanted to go back and see what did I do to make it so that happen, where was that little black line? I can go through every point along here. I must have been talking to you. I know what I did when I was clicking around with all those little what are they called? These little effects. Yes, I must have clicked on one of those ones that also had a stroke. In fact, there it is. It says stroke over here. I need to turn stroke off because I had drop shadow on, but I needed to have stroke there. So now just well, so there you go. So I just went through that process again and turned that into a JPEG and a web size. Hope that's helped, and just make up your own recipes for those drop shadows. Remember to experiment and give it a go. Practice and you'll get quicker. You'll still make mistakes like I do, but that's okay. Bye.